Worked directly with clients like Nike, Burberry, Chloe. Yeah, the work that we do and why we're doing it and how it's evolving based on customer feedback. And again, that's all about building that ability to share and present your work, but also break down silos across the organisation so people can see the work that's happening.
There's a lot more curiosity, a lot more appetite, and I think people are realising that there's actually a huge potential of what this can change for people, but also how it can elevate people's role. Well, thank you so much for joining me, Adam. So yeah, for everyone watching and listening, you're currently with Lloyds Banking Group as Head of Experience Design for Consumer Services and Engagement. So yeah, I really appreciate you coming in today.
No worries, thank you for the invite.
No, you're welcome. So I guess to start off, why don't you tell us a little bit more around your background and entry into Lloyds Banking Group?
Yeah, so I won't tell you when I started working in the digital industry, but yeah, background is a while ago moved to London, not far from here actually, and worked in a digital agency called Digit. So a very small 30-40 people agency, but a very creative agency. So worked there for around 2 years, and it was a great sort of foundation for my career. Working in a really sort of inspiring, collaborative, sort of award-winning agency, and moved on from there. Moved to a couple of different agencies. One was called Oyster Partners, that evolved into probably what you know now as sort of LBI, and then did a little bit of work at various agencies, contracting, freelancing, Poke, Tribal, DDB, and other places, and then looked to start my own or start a company with somebody I went to university with, and we'd worked together at lots of companies, and yeah, started a company called Everywhere. So a small agency where we designed and built apps and websites, and yeah, worked directly with clients like Nike, Burberry, Chloe, Frieze Art Fair, and then others, photographers, illustrators. So Anthony Burrell we worked very closely with, and then yeah, after around 9 years, decided to change, and life was moving on. I was having a family, life priorities changed, and then started to work at Lloyds, and so yeah, been there around 8 to 9 years now.
Imagine you've seen a lot of change over that time as well.
Yeah. In Lloyds especially, yeah, there's been a huge amount of change, and going from working with half a dozen to a dozen people in my own company with a fellow director, to sort of working in a 60,000 organisation, yeah, has been a drastic a change. Yeah. And then yeah, just financial services is really going through quite a transformational time. It was one of the industries that really interested me. I wanted to work in something that made a difference to people's lives, and if I was going to put a lot of effort into something, I really wanted to sort of stick. So yeah, that was definitely a reason that I looked at, and it was an industry that hadn't really 8 or 9 years ago, was the sort of fintech revolution was just hadn't really happened.
Yeah.
So it seemed an industry that was ripe for change.
Yeah, I think as well, when you look at the benefits of, like you say, working in financial services, you're helping literally your everyday customer, and that's millions and millions of people. So when you look at impact, it's a huge drive for people to want to go into that industry as well, to really be able to help people and know that the products you're designing and working on are actually being used by that many people. Yeah,
it's the longevity as well. You know, something you create has a real impact on people, but then also the investment and the effort put into it really, I think, pays off.
Yeah, definitely. And how did you find the transition going from agency and, like you said, a much smaller sized company through to your Lloyds Banking, which, like you say, thousands and thousands. Yeah, how did you find that shift, both maybe culturally and from a work perspective as well?
I probably should have been harder. I think, like anything, you have good and bad days in any job that you have or in any role that you do. I think going through the pressures of running my own business, and seeing those pressures, and then continually having to sort of look for new clients and being responsible for everything about that business and your delivery to clients. It was interesting to go into an environment like Lloyds where there's endless work to do. The transformation is continuous, and so it was just there's always another problem to solve. There's always there's less worries around thinking about the next piece of work, and things like that. So it was I thought it should, or I think I look back, I think it probably should have been harder. But I don't feel it's I don't think it didn't feel it was too bad.
Yeah. Do you think it's a thing as well that people maybe overthink in their heads that it's going to be a much bigger deal going through that transition compared to probably once you've been through it, actually what it is? I
think so, yeah, and I think it's also, I think, the environment that you go into, and hopefully I try to really help onboard people, really help build that connection when somebody joins the organisation. And it's always tough, isn't it, when you walk into a new environment, you're trying to understand how it works. You'll probably see it a lot with when you place people and that initial period where they've maybe been comfortable in another job.
Definitely.
And you go into that new environment and you're unsure of have you made the right decision.
Definitely.
So definitely sort of that idea of how you support somebody as they join, hopefully helps that sort of transition.
Yeah, definitely. And what have you done since being in Lloyds to kind of put in place that kind of like design team culture, and like you say, that onboarding, how people are welcomed into the team, the support that they're getting as well?
One of the small things I do is I send a book. I get the address of the new starter, and I write a little personal note on a book. Nice. And there's a book that I really value, and we've used as a team over the last couple of years. Okay. So nearly every new starter should get a thing called by Teresa Torres, Continuous Discovery Habits.
Okay, yeah, that's popular.
It's just a way of like, they'll have a tiny little note on a sticky from me, and it's just that connection, hopefully. And then while I was growing the team, I sort of made sure I started to onboard people and created a process that could be repeated, even in a sort of an environment like Lloyds where sometimes things are changing. I just tried to create that process that could be repeated, and then I've gradually, as I've handed over that responsibility, let others sort of take that forward. Nice. And then just try and spend some time. I've learned to, within the first month now that I'm not necessarily onboarding people directly, I'll get some time with them, either individually in the office and say hello, but I always sort of spend an hour with them and try and give them a background to Lloyds, everything that sort of I'd learned that they could appreciate, and then share some of that information and what I believe in, my ethos and how I want ideally them to sort of really understand. And then we try and have a sort of offsite every 6 months, bringing the team together, especially being so sort of focused in the office, and we can be quite spread out. We try and get together in an external office, external sort of space, and it's about sometimes just people getting to spend time with others, new starters, understand who I am and who others are. So
I think it's really important as well, because there's quite a common misconception that when you're joining a team of that size or a company of that size, that you are obviously a fish in a very big pond. So I think it's actually like really important to address that those still are those processes in place, and you're still going to have that human connection with your leaders all the way down to your peers and whatnot as well. So I think I think it's really key to have that level of consistency across the board, and like you say, you've put something in place that as the team has continued to grow, people can then take that on and pass it on to others as well.
Yeah, and I think it's just with the remote world, you know, we work hybrid, so you're sometimes in the office, sometimes at home.
Yeah.
And I think, yeah, there's just that ability to, you know, there's just sometimes a disconnect when you're so focused on delivery, then, you know, on delivering and the pace of that delivery, then sometimes you get to miss those conversations.
Yeah.
Those days in the office are very busy because they're limited. So yeah, that's definitely something that I really value about the time together.
And is that something that's like special for the design team in particular, or is it something that's consistent across the board for the most part?
It's more, I do it off my own back, so it's not necessarily something that my peers do in the same role, and it's not across the whole of the design team because we're spread out across the UK.
Sure.
So yeah, it's just really something that I've done to try to foster that sort of inclusive and sort of caring and informative, you know, sharing what our priorities are, reviewing progress.
Having that transparency across the board.
Yeah, we've probably run it for the last 2 years. I was asked for feedback. It feels like it's continually improved. We've had feedback from each session, and it's always reading that feedback and trying to act on it.
Yeah, definitely. And it'd be silly not to address the huge kind of tech transformation that you're undergoing at the moment, and obviously the new refreshed mobile app as well. Obviously, massive congratulations. I know you've been working on that project for a very long time, and it's nice to see you kind of come out the other end. So I guess tell us a little bit more about what really drove that transformation to begin with. Obviously, it's with millions of users now, and so tell us a little bit more.
Yeah, so Lloyds Banking Group, the parent company, we're around 3 years into a 5-year strategy. We had a new CEO around 3 years ago, Charlie Nunn, and he's brought in a real change into the organisation to meet some of the challenges that are out there in the financial services world and fintechs. And so part of that has been how we evolve and how we ensure that the mobile app for Lloyds, Halifax, Bank of Scotland and MBNA continues to sort of serve our customers, serve the organisation and the needs, and then look at the evolution and refresh of the identity. A big part of the last sort of 12 months has been looking at that, working with branding partners, and then working across many teams internally, how we work with the brand team, how we work with marketing, how we work in our teams, in our feature teams that build the various journeys that make up the mobile app, and then how we start to build that digital language, that digital brand language, and how we start to lay that out across the app, and then build into a design system that can be, you know, taken on by some of the designers that design and build those journeys, and the engineers as well that, you know, take on the engineering side of what we do.
And I guess, what would you say, you know, was the kind of the basis of this mobile app refresh? Was it consistency and feedback from users, or something that was driven a bit more internally as well?
Yeah, some of it is, I think, as you'll know, in your phone, you know, you'll see apps regularly update.
Yeah.
So I think there's an element of looking at the Lloyds app where it previously was, and how the sort of look and feel, I guess, the UI and where that was compared to the market.
Sure.
Apple, obviously, Apple and Android are continually evolving the OS, and all of the apps that you've got on the phone you'll see that things are regularly updating in there. So there was a big effort to redesign the real structure of the homepage and how that serves both the organisational objectives but our customers' objectives. And then that's when we also started to look at how the app looks and how it behaves and how it feels to customers.
Nice. And what does that user testing piece look like after, obviously, before the rollout, and now what that kind of continues to look like?
So across the app, all of the sort of journeys within the app, make a payment, statements, looking at your transactions, are continually there's teams and researchers, design teams and researchers embedded in those that are continually looking and evolving those journeys. What we were doing with some of the refresh was exploring customer feedback on the brand. They obviously looked at the brand and the feedback from that, and then we also looked at how it worked for our customer base, how it was working for vulnerable customers, and continue to work with partners and getting that feedback through the design process.
And obviously, I think across the board, design team of around 350 and around 60 in your team. So I guess I know a lot of people will be curious to know how you continue to deliver that consistency and ensure that everyone is working towards those shared goals as well.
Yeah, so in experience design, there is around 350 plus designers in the organisation that work across all of the business areas within what we call a platform that I work within. There's around 60 designers built into various squads that are based in feature teams. Some of the things that we do around consistency, we have regular design crits, so we're regularly running every other week. We have a design crit which all of the designers are invited to, and outside of design, to share work, to critique work, to get out of just thinking narrowly about your work and how it connects, breaking down those silos so other people are aware of what they're doing, what other teams are doing. We also run a session called Foundation, which is every Friday, which is usually around 100, 120 people, and a team usually presents between half an hour, maybe to an hour, the work that they're doing, the research that we're getting back from customers. So it's more of a formal presentation about the work that we do and why we're doing it and how it's evolving based on customer feedback. And again, that's all about building that ability to share and present your work, but also break down silos across the organisation so people can see the work that's happening. It usually, every team that presents usually gets to see, lots of contacts. People get in touch and say they want to hear more about it and work together. So things like that. We've been evolving the design system, so the native design system that supports the work that we're doing, and that's again that's continually building and maintaining and then improving that language and the design components that build up that. And one of the things we're trying to do is we've looked at outside organisations, or I've listened to various podcasts. And just finding ways that the design system can be closer to some of the teams that are working day to day on features. Those are some of the key things that I do. And then I've got designers leading the squads, and I try to ensure that they're talking and connected with each other and looking at how those journeys can be connected or impact each other.
Yeah, and I know you're a strong believer of dual track agile, so I guess tell us a little bit more about what that means for your design team and the impact of the work as well.
Yeah, so dual track is it talks about the ability to do design, more strategic design, or more, if you look at the double diamond, it's the early part, understanding the customer needs, and then ideating on what you find through research and data. And then the second diamond is more around execution and delivery. So in Lloyds, I've very much tried to introduce and shape teams and squads that have the ability to work in both those spaces, and also deliver. So the lower track is all around execution and delivery, and that's where the designers will be continually working with engineers and product owners to drive the work forward, and that's maybe closer to 2-week sprints. The higher level track really depends on the size of the problem, so it can be around, it could be 2 4, 6, 8 weeks, 12 weeks. It really depends on the problem that you're trying to solve.
Yeah.
And that work for me doesn't fit nicely into 2-week sprint cycles.
No.
And so for me, it's that ability for colleagues and people that you work with outside of design to really understand that time and space is needed. And you work through that creative process. Sometimes it's talked about being foggy, and that you'll work through and understand what the needs are, and then you'll sort of start to come to a space where you can come up with ideas and solutions. So yeah, for me it's very much a way to allow us to continue to deliver, but also to use design research to ideate, and I think that sometimes I think in-house it's that ability to continually be delivering and pushing value out to customers, but also that ability to do design work and have that time and that space.
I think it's really important as well because, like you say, the 2-week sprint, that really allows you to be able to ship fast to your customers and make sure that you're addressing whatever the problems might be that they're facing. But like you say, having that higher track means that you can actually focus on the strategic, like the vision, the longer term impact piece. So actually, it means that designers are getting the best of both worlds in a sense, because they are actually able to do the shipping fast, which a lot of the time can be where designers get frustrated if they can't ship quickly and they're not able to see that impact straight away. So it sounds like you're addressing both of those.
Yeah, definitely. It helps maturity wise. It helps bring that. It helps design continue to have an influence at a strategic level, but not slow the delivery down. And that's, you'll know across industries, it's the pace that everybody needs to be working and delivering. So yeah, for me it's just it's a way of being able to show. If you Google it, you can start to see it's people out there that talk about it. And so for me, it's been a way to bring that idea into the organisation, and just work a little bit differently and not so waterfall.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's an important education piece as well, because you do see it a lot of conversations around you can't fit design into the 2-week sprint model. It's just not something that is compatible. So I think as well it's really providing that transparency across an organisation of we're able to deliver ship at this pace, but if you want to look at the longer term strategy and the vision that and the impact design can truly have across an organisation, it's not something that you can fit into that box. It's about how you work with your partners, and you look at some of the organisations like Apple, Airbnb, and some that are design led, and it's and then it's different organisations where they're trying to have that ability for design to really help support and shape some of the decisions that are made. It's been for me just an interesting way and a way that's created out there by others in the industry. Yeah, and what's the feedback been in the team of people that potentially come in that haven't worked that way before as well?
It's for me, it's sometimes building the trust of colleagues, product owners, people that we work with day in, day out, to work in that way. Sometimes it's also helping younger designers early in their career to sort of understand how to work in that way, in that more strategic way, and how you start to understand the needs. And then I think for me it's about finding strong, experienced, what I call lead designers and researchers that are comfortable operating in that space, and can facilitate research, can facilitate workshops, it's about sort of being able to show the impact of that. That's how I've generally seen the team grow and get more buy-in from the organisation. Is through being able to show that delivery.
Definitely. And how quickly would you say that you saw the kind of difference in impact from previously not following that dual track method to then bringing it in as well?
I think we've probably seen it. We looked at something over the last year where a year ago maybe something was just an idea, and then we've moved it through into delivery very recently, and then we've continued to have the dual track aspect of the work where they're exploring new concepts, new features, new functionality, new propositions. It probably takes 3 to 6 months to find that way of working and get that support, that idea, that concept actually getting into customers' hands. So it's not necessarily, but it's that idea that it then starts to help feed the roadmap, feed the ideas that come behind.
Nice. And then on the ever so important topic that everyone is always talking about, AI, obviously it's something that's ever changing, but how has it impacted the team within Lloyds and potentially how you're working as well as a design team and different things that you're implementing, which should be making your lives easier?
Yeah, I think at the moment, all designers are sort of looking at what opportunities it will bring. I think Figma, you saw how Figma sort of launched their AI features after Config earlier this year, and then ended up pulling it back, or especially some of the work they've done around design systems. I think I'm trying to take an open mindset of how it will evolve over the next couple of years, and what it will be able to do, and how it will be able to change the roles that the design team, some of the activities and things that they do day in, day out. I think at an organisational level, it's spoken about. We've got a podcast that is out there talking about AI. We've got various leaders that have come in to drive AI forward, and within the organisation, there's a real appetite and in the platform that I work within to experiment. So there's definitely some internal work happening, but doing it in a way that is trusted and ensures our customers feel confident in what we do.
And I guess, in terms of, you say, customers need to feel confident in the products they're using and what's being released. So are there any particular features that have been, say, released or refreshed that are AI-backed, and how has that gone down with customers?
Not so much at the moment, and I think the organisation is treading carefully in that space. I think with just where the industry is. So there's not anything really that the organisation is sharing at the moment.
No, fair enough. I feel like as well we're at that point now where at the beginning there was a bit of fear around AI. It's going to take all of our jobs. What does this mean for us? And now, like you say, there's a lot more curiosity, a lot more appetite, and I think people are realising that there's actually a huge potential of what this can change for people, but also how it can elevate people's roles and allow people to potentially focus on other stuff that they might not have been able to focus on before.
Yeah, I think definitely there's I think there's that mindset of understanding what it can do for you and experimenting in your own time, at home, in your evenings or on your weekends. I think it blew up so much, didn't it? And in the last sort of 18 months, 2 years, and then it's now sort of, people talk about it like mobile. It's like it's the next big shift. Yeah. And I think everybody's just trying to understand how that fits into your day, into your role, into what you do. So I think designers hopefully are generally inquisitive and open. And it's, I think for me, just at an industry level, it's just what can it enable, and what are the limitations, and where do we have to sort of ensure that we don't get too sort of drawn in, and things don't become too similar through through the use of it.
Yeah, definitely. And are there any tools in particular that your team have used internally to help with day to day? Potentially, it could be on design, user research as well.
I think there's lots of things that we're trying to look at what others are doing. I think because we're a highly regulated industry, then I think there's a real there's a real sort of how do we get to a point where we go through the correct internal processes to enable that. And design, I think the organisation is just finding its feet about how to do that.
Sure.
So I think there's a lot more for us to do to really take advantage of it, I think, in design.
Yeah.
But you have to experiment, don't you? And so I think the whole design industry has to sort of just continue to embrace that, work through some of the, like Figma did, work through some of the challenges that they faced, and then how do we sort of continue to move forward? So it'll be interesting to see where it goes in design and how it impacts. And I think with things like Figma, we that's one of the tools we use, and that allows looking at the features and functionality they release. They obviously work at an enterprise level, and that's always what we have to do is sort of work with companies that can support the sort of organisation that we are.
Yeah, definitely. And then I think as well on the growth piece, I know you have a very much a growth mindset, and when it comes to the team, the product itself, and having that consistency of growth. I guess, where do you find your inspiration around it, both internally and externally?
I watch a lot of talks and try to go to conferences. So one I've gone to for the last couple of years has been Leading Design. That's at the Barbican by Clear Left, which is really great. And then where I can just try to sort of read what's happening in the industry, follow people that I respect on various social channels, subscribe to sort of email newsletters, things like that, Substack. So really try to look at how fellow design leaders, what they're doing, what they're talking about, and really just try and bring some of those ideas back into the organisation. So share those with the team, try to regularly support getting some of the designers out to conferences so they can grow, and just share internally with my peers and with the designers in the team some of the things I think that they will help them grow. This week just been sharing sort of various meetups that are being run free sometimes, which are different organisations. So and then again the book, I've shared over 100 copies of Teresa Torres's book, and then sometimes I've bought different books for other colleagues. So
I think it's really empowering as well when you have a leader that wants to bring in different perspectives, different learnings from external as well. And I can imagine you probably have a lot of the team come up to you, taking their own initiative and kind of driving other learning opportunities themselves.
Yeah, and I want people to share. We try to create a culture where it's not just me sharing, it's others. Yeah. So if people do go to a conference, it's like bring back what was a great talk. Share some insights so others in the team or in the experience design team can learn from that. It's we all have different interests, so it's continually trying to display those actions that you want others to sort of to replicate, and then hopefully you start to build that culture. Some of how we've approached the work that we've done within conversational banking, which is one of the areas that I support. We've brought different methods in from outside of the industry. We've partnered with some of the leaders in the industry. Then also within sort of the design system and the work that we were doing around the reshaping and the redesign of the mobile app, we looked at various talks given by the organisations that have gone through this and done this, and I really learned from some of that. And for me, it's also when you take so much from others, it's about sort of also giving back. So that's sort of something that I've been trying to do internally, is sort of start to build up what we do, how we work, creating those frameworks that we do, and share that internally. And then ideally, you know, as I read and listen and watch, I'd like to get to the point where we start to, or I personally start to sort of put things back out into the community. I think, you know, as you grow, you know, you read and you take some of that on, and it's about sort of giving back to the wider community.
Definitely. I think it's a really healthy mindset to have as well, of that constant evolution. There's always something to learn, always a way to grow. So I think if you don't have that mindset, you know, you're always going to kind of limit the potential of yourself, your team, and I think being able to, like you say, share those like nuggets of wisdom externally as well. It's really important, because especially, you know, the community side is really key for people to continue to grow, and actually being able to learn from each other's mistakes and also successes as well.
Yeah, I mean, you'll know it's such a small industry. You know, it's you know, I know that the events that you run and you bring people together, it's I've learned over my career that it's a small industry. You know, your role, what you do evolves over time. You know, when you're early in your career and they talk about you'll have, you know, you might have multiple careers. I sort of understand that now. Now I'm a bit older, but it's that ability to sort of evolve. I think in the role that I play now, and some of the things I'm reading at the moment is, you know, you're stepping away from the day-to-day design, and you're moving into that leadership position, and you're part of a business, and you have to become able to operate outside of your design. You have to operate obviously with your design peers, but you also have to operate with and work closely with other leaders across disciplines. You know, so the business leaders, the engineering leaders, the product leaders. So it's that's probably some of the areas that I'm doing or learning around, and that's some of what I share, I think, at the moment with some of my peers.
I think more so now than ever is you really have to look at your return on investment and also be able to show that. I think we've seen it. I feel like product design is on a really kind of positive upwards trajectory, and we're starting to see, you know, that shift back again. But I think really what is key, probably more than I think people really realise now, is really being able to show the outcomes versus the inputs as well. And I guess from like your side as well, how do you ensure that your designers and your product design team in general like really understand the impact that they're having and how that, you know, affects the business?
So yeah, something again, one of the books and some of the articles that I've sort of taken inspiration from. There's a book called Outcomes Over Outputs, and so definitely with internally the offsite, some of the offsites we've run in the last year have been to reinforce that message about how we move from just being delivery focused and out, you know, sharing Figma designs, to really understanding, using data to help sort of inform why we're doing something, but then also once you've delivered it, really understand the impact that it's having. So we have design analysts that help us understand that. We talk to the designers to ensure that they're continually understand and appreciate and look at what the outcome that their work is having, and is it having the desired outcome, and what do they feel like the outcome's going to be at the very beginning, or when they're ideating, what do they hope to achieve, and that's working with, you know, product to understand what it is, what the business outcomes we're trying to achieve, as well as the customer outcomes, and then, you know, just maturing your thinking to be able to really understand what it is that you've delivered. Is it, you know, if it's not driving the outcome, how do you change it? How do you evolve it, iterate on it? And again, I think it's a maturity of the design industry, I think, that we're all going through, is you know, the huge investment that happened around before and after or during and after the pandemic. We're starting to obviously see some changes in design, and I think there's a real it's us maturing. What's continually spoken about is product and engineering are more mature industries, especially in digital, and so it's about, I think, design maturing to that point where we really show the return on investment that organisations make.
Yeah, definitely. And then I guess to finish off, how do you feel like about where we are in terms of the current state of product design, and where do you see the near future?
So I see the wider industry moving to a point where I think a lot more research is embedded into the way we're working. So we're really lucky in that we've got researchers embedded in the squads that we've created. So using research, using data to inform decision making, like I spoke about with the outcomes over outputs, I feel there's just maturing. My feeling is I've realised that probably over my whole career it's going to be around building design maturity and accepting that each team you walk into, you're continually going to have to do that. Once you've built up, maybe in a team or in what we call a platform, or just wherever you work, people will change, people move on, new people arrive, and so that for me, I think, is just continuing to sort of understand that you're going to have to drive that education, and I think with sort of economic environment and a real focus on the return on investment, I think being able to show that for designers is really sort of fundamental.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you so much for joining me.
No worries, thanks very much for inviting me in.